okay, in the Kawakami piece, he asked him about Wilks, and Lynch said, "Hey, man, the players believe in Wilks," but he also emphasized, "Man, we have to play better." The thing that bothers me the most about the Wilks thing is just 16 different employers since 1996. That's a lot, man. That's a lot of different employers. And now Kyle said, "Hey, Steve and I are going to have a one-on-one this week, and we're going to talk about, is he in the booth or down on the sideline?" Obviously, you guys, Kyle doesn't talk till Wednesday, so I know you didn't talk to him today, but what do you think? I mean, where's that going? What is the solution for Wilks? Is being on the sideline the answer, or is this about personnel? What do you do?
Great question. It's a great question. And the reason you think bring him down on the sideline is, this defense needs someone like D'Amico was on the sideline. Robert Saleh was on the sideline. They were chest bumping players. There was literally a person on the staff whose job it was to hold Robert Saleh back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, he was called the holdback coach.
The holdback guy. So okay, that's what this defense thrived off. The whole team thrived off it. You want that. All right, man. You put Steve Wilks on the sideline. That's not him. It's not him. He's not Robert Saleh. He's not D'Amico Ryan. So basically what you're asking him to do is, hey, Steve, come to the 49ers and run a scheme you've never run. And then go on the sideline and be a person you're not. How inauthentic are you asking this man to be? It's not fair to Steve. Leave him alone. You should have vetted him better. Maybe he's not the personality. Maybe he's not the coach you need. But you can't change now. You're halfway in the season. What are you going to do? You could fire him and elevate Daniel Bullocks. That's the only other thing you could do. Daniel Bullocks is supposed to be like the next guy in the Niners defensive coaching program. But clearly they don't think he's ready. Otherwise, they would have gave him the job. So it seems like you got to roll with it, man. Leave him in the booth, leave him alone, and play better.
Yeah, I say leave him in the booth too. Leave him in the booth. If you're going to hold him accountable, then let him at least have a vantage point that he's comfortable with. And if he wants to be in the booth, then let him be in the booth, because you are going to hold him accountable for the results. So don't force him to, it's like a doctor who's trying to assess a patient. You're now going to change his vantage point and make him uncomfortable. Is that going to make it better? I don't think so.
Real quick, with Kyle, everyone always says he's so authentic, right? He's so authentic. He keeps it real. He's just himself. Well, they're not letting Wilks be authentic. Well, hey, whatever scheme you think, whatever instincts you've ever had in terms of defensive football, forget them and just try to be D'Amico Ryans in the meetings, in your play sheet, on the sideline. Just be D'Amico. That's totally unfair.
No,
that better not be the adjustment the Niners made at the bye week.
Well, and two things bother me. One is the run D. We'll get to that in a second. But the other is, I asked Chris Kasarik in July about, you're going to play your ones more, and he's like, no. If I play Bosa 70 snaps a game, man, he ain't going to be there in the playoffs. Well,
that's true.
Bosa's played over 60 snaps the last 3 weeks. Last week against the Bengals, he played 68 snaps. The Niners only have 5 sacks in their last 3 games combined, and they only, through 8 games, the non-Bosa DNs have only 5.5. So it's almost like what Chris claimed he didn't want to do in July, he is doing. And Lynch told Kawakami that Drake, who has only a 7% pressure rate and not a single pressure since week 4, is nicked up, but that he has to earn his snaps. It really seems like their backup D-line they've lost their quality depth. And, I don't know if Chase Young and Gregory are going to help. We're going to find out. But it's like they like their ones, but they don't love their backups.
Well, let's go through their backup D-line. You got Randy Gregory, who hasn't done much. You got Javon Kinlaw, who hasn't done much. Kevin Givens, who's a little small, hasn't done much. Yeah. And Cleveland Farrell. Okay. I mean, it's not great.
Little on the slow side.
It's not great. It's not a great. I mean, you really wouldn't want that entire line out there. And then you got Drake Jackson. Is Drake Jackson going to be inactive the rest of the season? I think he will be. Wow.
Well, I'd like to know what his injury is, because Lynch made it sound like he's banged up. I mean, he looked great against the Steelers in week 1, but no pressure since week 4, and it's week 9. That's not good.
They put all their eggs in his basket. They really sold themselves on him being something like, oh, he worked out. He put on weight. Okay. Is he good, though? And they never really got an answer with that. And in training camp, you were there. People would make a big deal about him when he like broke up a pass or was in coverage downfield. And it's like, that's nice, man. But what about rushing the quarterback? And I mean, I think he made Colton McKivitz look way better than Colton McKivitz is. They had battles in training camp. And I think that probably tells you everything you need to know about Drake. Sorry.
Where are you with Bosa? You know, because Lynch was like, hey, man, if you don't appreciate what Nick's doing, you're not watching the film. And I do watch the All-22 every week. And I will say this. I see him draw he will force opposing offensive linemen almost every single week to hold him at least once or twice and draw penalties. Mm-hmm. So that's good. But he's not getting home, but the coverage is soft. So it's like how much is him? Mm-hmm. If I say Nick Bosa, do you say he's having a great year, good year, mediocre year, disappointing year? Where are you with Bosa?
I think it's a disappointing year by his standards, considering what he's been able to do in the NFL and the amount of money the 49ers are committed to giving him. I think it's definitely disappointing by his standards. And it's like, you could say that it's because of the soft coverage and it's Steve Wilks' fault, but then he had no sacks in the playoffs last year. Like, this was going back to last year. Right. And Chris Kasarik said that thing about, trying to keep him fresh. I don't know, man. I mean, he's played a lot of football. It seems like he just has hit a wall or something. And it goes back to last season. So I don't want to just blame it all on Steve Wilks. He's still a good player. Obviously, he's the best player of the Niners D-line. One of the best players on the team. But a defensive lineman getting $35 million a year, who for about 2 seasons was registering a sack a game, and now it's been like 13 games. He's only had 4 sacks in the last 13. I don't know. And then you look at Joey with the Chargers. It's like, man, he's not the player he used to be. Is that where Nick's going? I feel like Joey Bosa was dominant, and all of a sudden he wasn't. He became expensive and good, but not nearly worth what they're paying him. And I wonder, like, is that where Nick's going? Because every week I think we expect, okay, this is the week he's got a backup offensive tackle. He can really tee off, and it doesn't really happen. So I don't know. You tell me.
To me, he looks a little bit more yoked up, a little stiffer. I still see him getting some good things done, but it's just like it seems like the coverage, if he's almost getting there, you got to tighten your coverage a little bit. And if you tighten your coverage a little bit, I mean, I'd like to see the Niners, at least in one game, maybe this week, have real tight coverage, but get burned over the top. Mm-hmm. Because right now, they're not getting burned over the top, but they're playing such soft coverage that their team quarterbacks are getting into rhythms against them. And Cousins and Burrow the last 2 weeks have completed like 82% of their passes against this defense.
Do you remember what Wilks said first thing when he came into the team? He said, they're like, you're taking over the number 1 defense in the league. How could you possibly make it better? What do you want to do to put your imprint on this defense? And he was real clear. Like, I want to give up fewer explosive plays. Because if you remember last year, one of the things this defense kind of struggled with was long passes. Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore getting mossed at the catch point. They gave up a lot of long passes for a number 1 defense. And I think Wilks felt, got to stop that. So all of a sudden, you're getting this too high off zone coverage that's way more conservative than what D'Amico was doing last year. And I think I feel like Steve Wilks has really overcompensated. It's okay. So you haven't given up that many long passes this year, but you gave up 19 completions in a row.
Right.
In a half. Come on. You make an adjustment quick, and you can't let that happen. You can't win that way.
Oh, I know.
Take something away.
Seriously, challenge these guys at the line of scrimmage a little bit more. And I guess the game plan, or at least the ideology, is that teams, if you've got a good 4-man rush, if you play a loose coverage, and you keep everything in front of you, that over the course, if you make them pin them deep inside their own 20, make them drive, 85 yards against your defense, that somewhere along the line, they'll make a mistake. But guess what's happened the last couple of weeks? Since he rolls in, they make no mistakes. They have no penalties. Minnesota makes no mistakes. What do you think Jacksonville's
going to do? Exactly. What do you think's going to happen when you face these quarterbacks? They're good.
They're going to carve you. And then all of a sudden
Purdy would carve you.
And then you look tired at the end of games, and you can't stop the run, and you start to give away the run, and then all of a sudden the whole thing falls apart. Let me ask you this. I talked to
Real
Croc.
quick.
Yeah.
Remember why the Niners signed signed Travarius Ward. Okay. That was D'Amico's second year as a DC. And his whole thing, he talked about it. I want the quarterback to have to take a hitch. If we can make him hitch one time, meaning he drops back,
right,
it's not there, and he has to hitch one more time and wait, we're going to sack him. We want that extra beat because we want to hit the quarterback, not just pressure the quarterback. So that's why you brought in a press corner in Travarius Ward, a press corner. Wilks comes in and looks at Travarius Ward and said, "No, I'm going to play you 9 yards off the ball." Why? That's not how he got paid.
He doesn't look comfortable in that. And people think, oh, well, it's easier. It's actually very difficult for these corners to understand exactly the timing to when to play off coverage. It's
you're like asking to be Richard Sherman. Like, okay, he's not Richard Sherman. He's Travarius Ward.
It's difficult, and it's not necessarily a smooth transition. All right. Croc, I had him on earlier today. We did a little co-stream. Croc thinks that the Niners are scapegoating Wilks.
I can see
Where are you on that front?
I agree with him.
Possible?
I agree with him. He's part of the problem for sure. But first of all, they never should have hired him. And second of all, he's not the whole problem. It's not just the defense. This offense has scored 17 points 3 games in a row.
Right.
And I mean, they just lost 2 guys. They still had a bunch of talent, not on their offensive line, but that's them. That's how they build their team. So I would agree with Croc that they are scapegoating Steve Wilks. I mean, you put him in a no-win situation. You brought him in here and asked him to run someone else's scheme. Good luck. That was a bad idea. And now when the whole it's to me, it's a whole team meltdown the last 3 games. It was special teams, it was offense, it was defense. And to act like it's all on Wilks and maybe the solution is moving his location during games is so off the point. So I got to agree with him.